headlines we're following at this hour. Typhoon Khanun has made its way out of the country, leaving powerful scars in the east, with dozens of roads and houses flooded in Gyeongsangdo and Gangwon, the provinces, while at least one person is dead and another missing in Daegu. And leaders of South Korea, US, and Japan are reportedly working to announce holding three-way summits on a regular basis at the upcoming meeting at Camp David next Friday. Tonight, Seoul is to host a K-pop concert for tens of thousands of Scout members at the end of the World Scout Jamboree. Good afternoon. After staying roughly 16 hours in South Korea, Typhoon Khanun made its way out of the country as of 1 a.m. Friday, crossing over into the north. It ripped through the country, hitting the east and southeast the hardest before passing through the capital region, bringing heavy downpours along the way. For more, we're joined by Choi Soo-hyung. Soo-hyung, how's it looking over there?
Well, Gyeongun, I'm here at Paldang Dam right now in Hanam, Gyeonggi province, which controls the water levels of Hamgang River. As Typhoon Khanun moved northward, it brought heavy rainfall to the Seoul Metropolitan area, leading to a rise in the water level of the Hamgang River. Here at Paldang Dam, last night at 10 p.m. when Khanun was passing through Seoul, the Han River Flood Control Office began releasing over 2,000 tons of water per second, twice the usual discharge amount. The current water level at the Paldang Dam is around 24 meters below the critical level of 27 meters. As Khanun crossed over to North Korea overnight, there were concerns about the potential for surprise water releases from North Korea's Panggang Dam on Imjingang River due to the heavy rain. The office here maintained an emergency response system throughout the night in preparation.
I see now the country is free from typhoon alerts, but are we going to see lingering showers for the time being?
Well, Gyeongun, Typhoon Khanun has weakened and moved into North Korea, but Seoul is still seeing rain. The typhoon is expected to be recorded as an unusually long-lasting typhoon. Khanun is the only typhoon that has stayed over South Korea for more than 12 hours, with the exception of Typhoon Solik in 2018. In Seoul, which was also affected by Khanun on Thursday night, over 80 millimeters of rain fell per hour, and the rain is still continuing in the capital area. The Korea Meteorological Administration says Seoul is expected to see 5 to 14 millimeters of rainfall until Saturday, while the northern Gyeonggi region is forecast to receive 20 to 60 millimeters of rainfall. Currently, there are no road closures in downtown Seoul, but 27 rivers, including Cheonggyecheon and major hiking trails, are still closed. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Gyeongun.
All right, thank you, Soo-hyung, for the reporting. Do stay safe. Now the country is reeling from the damage left by Khanun, which affected dozens of roads, public facilities, and homes nationwide. Tens of thousands have taken shelter, and at least one person has died and another has gone missing. For more on this, we're joined by our Kim Jung-sil on the line. Jung-sil, what do we know so far?
Well, no additional human casualties have been reported as of 11 a.m. today. That's according to the Central Disaster Headquarters. As you said, a man in his 60s was killed after being swept away by torrents in Daegu, and another similar-aged man in an electric wheelchair went missing after falling into a small stream, also in Daegu. A police investigation is underway, as both accidents are classified as safety accidents instead of typhoon-related. So far, the government is tentatively saying there are no human casualties reported solely because of typhoon.
I see, but there have been multiple reports of property damage and public roads and facilities have been destroyed, right?
That's exactly right. The government says there have been more than 360 cases of damage to facilities and properties nationwide. Much of the damage to roads and public facilities was in South Korea's southern city of Busan, and flooding damage to houses have also been reported mainly in Gangwon, the province, as well as Daegu, which all suffered from extreme amounts of rain during the typhoon. And I also want to show you some of the photos and footages from yesterday that make you kind of understand the power of Khanun here in Korea. In Koje City, in far south of the country, which was first place to be hit by the typhoon, you can see the bricks fell down by the typhoon and hitting the cars and making damage. There have been multiple reports of trees falling down on the side of the roads, blocking traffic. You can see the roots of the tree completely out of the ground. I also want to mention the damage to this natural monument, a multi-stem pine tree that is thought to be around 400 years of age in Gumi City, Gyeongsang-buk-do province, which fell down sadly because of the typhoon on Thursday morning.
I see. Those are some powerful scars from the typhoon. Since there was a lot of damage reported, what is the government's latest stance on the typhoon damage?
Well, President Yoon Suk-yeol this morning ordered damage recovery for people who were affected by the powerful typhoon, since nearly 16,000 people had to evacuate from their homes yesterday. The president also called for thorough support for those who are taking shelters. As of 11 a.m., though, today, 70% of these evacuees are now back in their homes. The president reaffirmed that taking preemptive measures to control roads and evacuation is the principle of the disaster control.
I see. Lastly, we have roads controlled and public transport halting operations yesterday. What is the latest on that front?
Well, all the trains are now back on track. Korea Railroad announced that the KTX and all other trains are operating on a normal schedule from this morning. Airplanes have also resumed flights across the nation since yesterday afternoon, especially those in Jeju Airport, which had most amount of cancellations. An official at Korea Maritime Transportation Safety Authority told me earlier that most ferries are also back on business, with few exceptions on the East Coast and Incheon area, as the region is feeling the final effects of the typhoon. All international ferries and ferries coming in and out of the southern regions are also back to their normal schedules. That's all I have for this hour. Back to you, Kyung-eun.
Thank you, Chong-ji, for that coverage. South Korea, U.S. and Japan have requested a UN Security Council meeting to jointly discuss human rights issues in North Korea. If it goes ahead, it will be the first North Korean human rights meeting held at the UN Security Council since 2017. According to U.S. Ambassador to UN Linda Thomas-Greenfield on Thursday, the issue of human rights abuses in North Korea is closely related to the issue of international peace and security, adding that the three allies want the meeting to take place on August 17th. North Korea has repeatedly rejected accusations of abuses and has instead blamed sanctions for the dire humanitarian situation in the regime. The leaders of South Korea, U.S. and Japan are reportedly working to announce holding three-way summits on a regular basis at the upcoming meeting at Camp David. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
The leaders of South Korea, the United States and Japan are planning to meet at least once a year for trilateral talks and hold joint military exercises to deter North Korea's nuclear threat. That's according to a US diplomat Thursday, who said the three countries are close to finalizing a joint statement to be issued at Camp David after Presidents Yoon Suk-yeol and Joe Biden and Prime Minister Fumio Kishida hold talks next Friday. US Ambassador to Japan Rahm Emanuel told Japanese media that the joint document is being finalized and will include holding a yearly trilateral leaders meeting separate from international conferences. He said the leaders are also looking to conduct annual trilateral joint training between their militaries as North Korea continues to develop nuclear weapons and missiles and China strengthens its maritime advances. The three leaders will also strengthen intel sharing and cyber cooperation, as well as touch upon economic security. With such agreements expected to, quote, change the strategic landscape of the Indo-Pacific region, Emanuel added that a separate vision statement will be released, taking trilateral collaboration into a new phase. This comes amid speculation that the three countries are working to build a mechanism for three-way cooperation, although it is unclear whether the joint statement would mention China or to what extent it would be alluded to, given the geopolitical sensitivities in the region. According to US Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security, Ellie Ratner, the Camp David meeting isn't just about getting together and having dialogue and sharing views, but would also seek innovative ways to regularize trilateral cooperation. On that note, Seoul's National Security Advisor Cho Tae-yong told reporters last Friday that a consensus is being formed on holding the yearly trilateral gatherings and that the outcome will likely materialize after the leaders' discussions. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Iran is set to free 5 imprisoned American citizens in exchange for 5 of its own citizens detained in the U.S. and access to $6 billion of funds frozen in South Korea. Tehran also reportedly says the Americans currently under house arrest in Iran can return to the U.S. once the funds are secured. Choi Min-jung reports.
The United States and Iran have reached a deal to swap prisoners, marking an encouraging development in their rocky relationship. Sources familiar with the matter said the two countries have reached an agreement to free Americans in exchange for several jailed Iranians in the U.S., as well as access to billions of U.S. dollars in Iranian funds frozen in South Korea. The U.S. State Department on Thursday confirmed that its citizens were released from prison and are currently under house arrest in Iran.
First, it's a positive step that they were released from prison and sent to home detention. But this is just the beginning of a process that I hope and expect will lead to their return home to the United States.
It's reportedly known that the 5 Americans will be allowed to leave Iran once Tehran secures the $6 billion worth of oil payments frozen in South Korea due to U.S. sanctions. According to the Iranian Foreign Ministry, the process of releasing the funds is underway. However, the U.S. clarified that the funds could only be used for humanitarian purposes, like buying food or medicine.
Iran's own funds would be used and transferred to restricted accounts such that the monies can only be used for humanitarian purposes, which, as you know, is permitted under our sanctions.
The rare deal between Washington and Tehran reportedly comes after at least 2 years of negotiations. Though it is viewed as a positive step to their relations, there is also criticism that the funds allocated for humanitarian goods could be used for Iran's nuclear program. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The curtain is coming down on this year's World Scout Jamboree, and tens of thousands of scouts will be saying goodbye to South Korea with a star-studded K-pop concert tonight here in Seoul. Our An Sung-jin has what to expect.
The 25th World Scout Jamboree will come to a close on Friday with a K-pop Super Live concert and a closing ceremony at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. The closing ceremony is set to begin at 5:30 p.m. and will be followed by a K-pop concert from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. 19 acts are set to perform, including NCT Dream, Mamamoo, New Jeans, Monsta X's Shunwoo and Hyungwon, The Boys, ITZY, and other K-pop groups. Actor Kong Myung, ITZY Yuna, and Hain from New Jeans will host the show. The concert was initially set to take place last Sunday at the World Scout Jamboree's campsite at Saemangum, but it was rescheduled for Friday at the Jeonju World Cup Stadium, an hour's drive from the campsite, because of heat wave and weather concerns. However, with fears over Typhoon Khanun, the venue was changed again, this time to the Seoul World Cup Stadium. About 1,000 buses carrying the Jamboree participants will arrive at the stadium between 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., spaced out to avoid congestion. Police will be on duty to further manage traffic in the area.
First and foremost, safety is the most important thing. Today, we have to transport a large number of Jamboree attendees. Please pay special attention to the security of the crew and the participating artists, as well as the food and maintenance at the venue. Double-check stage equipment and facilities.
The Ministry of Health and Welfare, as well as the Seoul Metropolitan Government and the Fire Department, prepared 4 on-site emergency medical centers and 10 ambulances in case of emergency. About 40 medical personnel will also be on site. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's economic slowdown has eased due to recovery in exports and improved economic sentiment. That is according to Finance Minister's Economic Green Book for July, which was released on Friday. The report shows that despite an on-year fall in last month's exports, the country saw a trade surplus for the second straight month as the drop in imports was greater than that of exports. The ministry also expects to see its third consecutive month of growth in chip export volume when the figures come out for July. Meanwhile, the Consumer Sentiment Index rose 2 percentage points in July from the previous month. U.S. consumer prices have accelerated on an annual basis for the first time in more than a year. Despite the uptick, economists say there's no need for alarm as inflation seems to be still on the decline. Lee Seung-jae reports.
According to data released Thursday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, U.S. consumer prices rose 3.2% on year in July, up from June's 3% increase. Despite the acceleration, the figure still fell below economists' expectations of 3.3%. While the pace of consumer price increases accelerated on an on-year basis for the first time in over a year, it was largely due to year-over-year comparisons to July 2022, when monthly inflation turned negative. On month, prices rose 0.2% due to rising shelter costs, which accounted for 90% of the total increase. Core CPI, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, also increased by 0.2% on month and 4.7% on year, the lowest since October 2021. This was below the Dow Jones's estimate of 4.8%, all of which still signals that inflation is on a downward trend despite the slight acceleration. Food prices rose 0.3% month on month, while energy prices saw a rise of only 0.1%. The latest data shows that while inflation has significantly dropped since the 40-year highs since last year, it's still above the U.S. Fed's target of 2%. While the figures might not be enough to lead the U.S. Central Bank toward cutting rates just yet, it may signal a rate freeze in the FOMC meeting slated for September. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics officially released its latest premium smartphone models, the Galaxy Z Flip 5 and Fold 5, on Friday. The South Korean tech giant announced that its latest smartphones are expected to be released in 50 countries by the end of next month. These phones are already breaking records for pre-orders, outselling previous generation models, not only in Korea but around the world. 1.02 million units were sold in South Korea between August 1st and 7th, a new pre-sale record for foldable phones. Along with smartphones, other smart devices, including the Galaxy Watch 6 and Galaxy Type S9 series, were also released on Friday.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the U.S. state of Hawaii, at least 53 people have been killed in the destructive wildfires on the island of Maui. The death toll is expected to rise as search and rescue operations continue. Hundreds of people have lost their homes and thousands more have been forced to evacuate. Some parts of the island are still without power and mobile phone service due to infrastructure damage. The fires are also impacting Big Island, where evacuations are also underway. But according to the mayor, no deaths there have been reported and no homes have been destroyed. President Joe Biden has declared the wildfires a major disaster. It will free up federal aid and emergency assistance. The wildfires broke out amid prolonged dry conditions and were fanned by winds from Hurricane Dora. Russia has successfully launched a spacecraft with the goal of landing on the moon after nearly 50 years. Early Friday morning, a Soyuz rocket blasted off from the Vostochny Cosmodrome. The Russian space agency Roscosmos plans to land its Luna 25 craft on the moon's south pole to search for water, an essential component to support potential human bases there. If successful, Russia could be the first to land in the region, but faces competition from India in what has become a modern-day space race. India hopes to land its Chandrayaan-3 craft at the South Pole on August 23rd, from where it will also begin the hunt for water. In more space news, Virgin Galactic has launched its first space tourism mission. The successful spaceflight was launched on Thursday from the company's US-based spaceport in New Mexico. It saw the Unity spacecraft carry a mother and daughter duo and an 80-year-old former Olympian with Parkinson's disease. The mother and daughter got their seats after winning a raffle, while the senior passenger was in fact among the first to buy tickets for the spaceflight in 2005. The flight comes after decades of promises, as Virgin Galactic founder Richard Branson had initially hoped to launch the first commercial spaceflight in 2007. But it was delayed by technical difficulties as well as a fatal crash during testing in 2014. And finally, Elon Musk is set to auction off memorabilia and office paraphernalia from the social media company formerly known as Twitter. Now named X, the company listed 584 lots from its headquarters in San Francisco. The items on sale include Twitter signs, large bird cages, a DJ set, and even the Twitter sign is still attached to the side of the HQ building. Other items listed range from musical instruments to oil paintings of pictures that went viral on the platform. The move comes after Musk rebranded Twitter and replaced its distinctive bird symbol. The auction runs from September 12th to the 14th, with bidding for each lot starting at $25 US. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The tropical storm became a tropical depression this morning in North Korean Khanun, that is, but it dropped torrential showers and violent winds to East Coast regions. East of Gangwon-do province and southeast coast, they were received nearly 400 millimeters of downpours since Wednesday. And those near the water still need to stay on a high alert. A high seas watch remains in place in the East Sea and West Sea, while a strong wind advisory remains in place for West Coast regions. And there will be lingering showers into early Saturday in the upper parts of the country. 5 to 60 millimeters of rain showers are in the forecast. Southern regions, meanwhile, will see passing showers during the day today. Now, we can say those in the south are free from the typhoon's impact today. Summer weather has returned under sunny skies, with highs rising into the 30s again this afternoon. Calm and mostly sunny weather return this weekend, and there will not be any major heat wave from now. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Typhoon Khanun has cut through the whole country, but its damage was greater in the east. These were scenes from places like Daegu and Gangwon-do province, which certainly show more devastation than places like Gwangju and Jeolla provinces on the other side of the country. This is because typhoons spin counterclockwise, which makes their east side stronger than the west. So the area that falls into the dangerous semicircle gets hit harder. And typhoons get energy from warm seas, and the warmer than usual temperatures on the east coast also fueled Khanun's intensity. And that also boosted the overall energy of Khanun, which survived for longer inland than most typhoons. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.